As said, I'm Alexa Krief. I'm coordinating the media programs at Under the Milky Way, digital distribution company. And this is Sarah Calderon. She's the CEO of the film agency, and she coordinates the marketing strategy of both programs. So in this presentation, we'll be divided in two parts. On the first part, we will raise the curtains on the marketing strategy behind the Walk This Way project. And on the second part, we'll speak about the Tide experiment and how Date is a particularly well-adapted release scheme for documentary. And to discuss this, we will invite Salma Abdallah, CEO of Outlook Film Sales, that will present her experience of the movie she's been releasing with Tide. So I will start by briefly introduce the Walk This Way project for those who are not familiar with it, and then I will let Sarah explain in details the challenge we had to overcome in 2015, the figures in terms of traffic and units, and then she will present the new marketing strategy that we have adapted for 2016. So Walk This Way, what is Walk This Way? Walk This Way is a digital distribution program that explores alternative distribution models for European movies in beauty platforms. It releases 30 to 50 movies per year, grouped in 6 sets of collections. Each film is prepared with subtitles, technical solutions, and an adapted marketing strategy. And Walk This Way has 3 main goals. The first one is to aggregate a diversified slate of films and create coherent collection for pan-EU audience. The second one is to provide beauty platforms with high-quality material to exploit those films and collection with the maximum visibility. And the third one is to define and implement a digital marketing mix to enhance exposure and maximize revenue. And to show you briefly what is Walk This Way, we have prepared a video that will be displayed on media local, Spanish local media.
Yes, just to clarify that this video is a work in progress. It's going to be launched in a couple of weeks, and therefore the texts are not completely accurate yet, but it is a way to explain what is Walk This Way from the point of view of the audience. This is how the journalists actually explained to people what it is and what is the benefit behind Walk This Way.
So the team of Walk This Way is a diversified group that represents all the players of European actors in the movie industry. They are all very important, and each of them add a value in the distribution process. It was very key to build a team in order to work all together. And here you can see that we're working with a grouping of 12 European sales agents from all Europe, all gathered under the umbrella of Europa International. So Under the Milky Way takes care of all the digital process distribution, and the film agency, the coordination of the marketing strategy. This is a slide to show you some metrics of 2015. So as you can see, because 2016 is the second edition of Walk This Way, so we already have 1 year behind us. We released 34 movies in more than 20 territories in 15 languages. So that means 272 releases and the creation of more than 180 subtitles. And we've been releasing all these movies on both global and local platforms. So all the movies were available on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play, but also Filmin in Spain, Flimit in Austria and Germany, and Universiné in France and Belgium. We sold about 25,000 units, and our trailer were watched about 534,000 times, and there were about 105,000 clicks. This is after this first year of experimentation through Work This Way. It appears that one of the most important challenges of the action lies in defining and executing appropriate marketing strategy. The Creative Europe support is thus essential in order to allow European professionals to become proficient in film marketing and promotion in an upcoming digital era. And at this stage, we have raised the following issue and challenges that we structure in 3 axes. The first challenge would be the return of investment, how to measure the performance of marketing tools in regards with the economics imperative and the return on investment. The second challenge was to find the mix between transversal and local. And it was key to identify the right balance between those 2 approaches. Most of the tools are defined by Think Global, Act Local mantra. But since we centralize the logistic and the strategy, and anchor each action by using the local languages, local media and the geo-targeting tools, we are in a constant balance between both global and local approach. However, we thought that a more localized approach through media partners and local purchase on local media could bring a better level of connection with the local audience, and Sarah will explain this later. The last challenge is just choice of tools. The first steps of Work This Way shows that the biggest challenge is not only to raise awareness, but also to use the digital marketing tools as a sales driver, and in order to reach critical masses and avoid the threshold effect and to target the right audience, because we have fragmented audiences all around Europe and so many tools to possibly reach them. I will start by showing you, in this slide I have chosen to show you some figures from the 2015 campaign to illustrate the challenge we are facing in terms of return of investment. And I have 3 examples. You can see on the left column the first slide of movie we released. It's a collection of 5 thriller movies called Men on the Edge that worked quite well and were distributed in highly commercial potential territories with big VOD markets. You can see on the first column the budget invested, the number of units sold, and the revenues that it generated. The price per unit means how much we had to invest for 1 unit to be sold. And finally, the conversion rate. It means that for this collection, about 1.72 people who clicked on the trailers, the banners, or the ads bought the movie on the VOD store. And I wanted to show you the 2 other examples in comparison. We had another collection of 4 independent romance movies in a collection called Unexpected Love Stories, and 1 premium film. And that is the Man We Stole Happy. It was the Michel Gondry documentary that was released 2 years ago. For this movie, the price per unit was very high, as you can see in the red circle. And we wondered why, because we thought this movie would be a hit and found its audience because the cast and the crew were quite famous, Michel Gondry, and it was a specific genre, and animated pictures. So we invested a lot, almost as much as we invested for a whole collection. But in the end, the territories targeted were smaller, and finally their VOD markets were not as big as we thought. So it's a lesson that we have learned for 2016, that we adapted to work more closely with our strategy to target each body market on each territory with more specific strategy.
Okay, so just a very quick introduction about ourselves. So I am Sarah from the film agency, and we are the marketing partners of Tide and Walk This Way, as Alexia explained. So our challenge with Walk This Way is to try and experiment and find out what are the best tools in the digital marketing world to accompany the films that we're releasing throughout the year. Since this is not like an exact science that has been already invented, we really have to take the project as a sandbox, and as we test things, we extract some learnings. So the first thing we did at the very beginning, and that we're still doing, is evaluating what are the digital marketing tools that are out there and how we can take the best out of them for Walk This Way. Some of the tools that we have used so far are YouTube TrueView, so the advertising arm of YouTube, Google AdWords, as many of you may know, iTunes ads, which are advertising inside the iTunes platforms, video seeding and digital advertising, meaning videos or banners that are embedded in different websites or blogs across Europe. Also, we have set a Walk This Way blog that is powered by Cineuropa. It is a blog that is publishing more than 100 articles per year related to our films, but also to listings of similar films, and that is translated into 7 languages. So this allows us to have own content launched to the internet. And then also, of course, social media. We're working with Twitter and Facebook, both on the content and on the advertising side. And last but not least, we're also having a digital PR strategy where we have hired a company called Way to Blue, having different offices and PR agents in several European territories, and they are helping us to raise awareness through media. So as you can see in this map, some strategies are more transversal, more international, and some others are more local. And as Alexia was explaining, our challenge is where to allocate more budget and how to basically take the best of the centralized part, so the international part, but also have a local anchorage on everything we do. So these are the tools that we used in 2015 and that we're optimizing for 2016. So we analyzed that in November 2015, all the tools that we have used with very specific analysis and reportings to understand which tool was delivering the best results. Video seeding, for example, was a tool that we estimated as very useful at the beginning, because we thought it's perfect because it's a trailer that is planted in a website, and from there we take our audience to our YouTube channel and to our platforms. But in the end, it appeared to be too expensive for the margins that we're dealing with, and this was the most important challenge for this kind of tool. We realized, even together with the company that was dealing with this, that for VOD type of films that we're dealing with, YouTube TrueView was more adapted, since the cost per click was much lower, and also there were less steps from the moment we grabbed our audience to the moment where they bought actually the film. So we identified first of all this challenge, but besides sorry, just one step back, okay. But this being said, this video seeding tool delivered for us 350,000 views of our trailers online, and delivered therefore a lot of traffic to the VOD platforms. The next tool that we were using very commonly, and it's also very often used for VOD platforms in general, is the search engine marketing, or SEM, also known as Google AdWords, particularly in Europe, where we centralize all of our efforts to Google as a unique search engine. In this particular tool appears to be very, very cost effective. It's actually the most cost effective that we have used in 2015. It delivered almost 10 million impressions of our films, and we were dealing with a cost per click of 0.07, which was very convenient for the type of margins that we are dealing with in VOD. So this is one of the tools that we are keeping, and I will tell you the changes in a minute. The challenge here for us in the use of search engine marketing is where to deliver the traffic. Should we deliver it directly to iTunes, directly to Google, to Filmin, or should we bring them to our blog and from them to the platforms? It's always a balance and a question that we are going to ask ourselves and that we are constantly dealing with. And we have, the magic of online marketing is that you can actually have all of the best options, because you can test things all the time to the different platforms. So in 2015, part of the budget went directly for the VOD platforms, and part of it was directly to our blog. And we will see how that changed in 2015. So that you know, for you that are not familiar with search engine marketing tools, these are the kind of banners that appear when you buy this type of advertising. As you can see, these banners are related to the display, what they call the display network. So these banners are planted in sites that are related somehow to the target audience of our films. So this display network was the one that delivered the best results for our program. As we were explaining before, the blog, which is powered by Cineuropa, is actually publishing more than 100 articles in 7 languages, and brought us, I think, 30,000 views in 2015 of our content. Then social media, we are using both Twitter and Facebook, as I was explaining before, and we thought at the beginning that this hub of social media would be very important to gather the rest of the interactions and traffic from the general ecosystem. But the first year appeared to be very challenging because we didn't have a specific community to tackle. For example, Walk This Way is not something that is known as a brand by people, and it's not a company, it's not a distribution outlet, it's not a production company. So for people to engage and say like, they need to know what it is. And for us, this was very difficult on the first year to communicate exactly what it is and what was the benefit behind it. Also to have like very tailor-made contents in 7 languages all the time, very frequent, is very time-consuming, and it's difficult to be up to date with all the information. And of course, the fact that the films don't have previous awareness due to a theatrical release in the countries that we're dealing with, but it's the moment where people are confronted to the message on social media, they haven't heard probably about the films. So all these are challenges that we're dealing to with social media, and in spite of that, we have gathered on 2015 almost 5,000 likes on Facebook, which was the platform that delivered the best results. Okay, about the digital PR strategy, as I was explaining before, we have we engaged a company called Way to Blue in 2015, and they achieved 40 impacts from media to blogs in the different countries that they were dealing with about our collections and about our content. This, I would say, is also very challenging as a tool, because first of all, they had to do a very precise job, not only doing like the pedagogy for people, but also for journalists who actually don't have a specific section dedicated to VOD on their media, or and that don't give like specific importance to VOD as opposed to theatrical, of course. So we have to, Way Too Blue and the film agency, we have to deal all the time with these kind of barriers, and to generate spaces in media where actually VOD is showcased. So after a year of work, those 40 impacts actually were the results of that we could achieve, and I will explain later what we're doing to increase that number. These are more examples of those impacts. And now, are there questions for you so far? Because we're gonna go for 2016 improvements. So maybe if you want to ask something at this point, is a good moment. Yes?
We talked about a really good CPC, but what was the conversion?
It depends on the different collections. We have like maybe you can go back. I don't know if we have a summary of that conversion rate. No, we have it. It's a different like a summary depending on each collection. So this is something that we're still analyzing. You'll see in 2016 so far that we have decreased the CPC. So we're like optimizing the campaigns more and more, but we don't have yet a summary overall figure. Okay, there you have, yes?
Hi, you're saying that Walk This Way is not, it's not easy to explain what it is. So is it the product, the device, or the company?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
What's Walk This Way?
It's the project.
It's a project, right?
Yeah, I think that for the audience, we're trying to position it more and more as a label that is dealing with European film, and that's how they ultimately are starting to perceive it. But we don't market much the Walk This Way brand to the audience. We market more the collections that we're labeling.
Powered by Walk This Way.
Yes, a little bit, but we try not to, I mean, since we have a limited budget, we try to like give priority to the message of the collection itself rather than our brand, at least at these first stages.
Maybe one last question.
Yeah, one last question and we proceed.
I actually first wanted to ask because if you're marketing rather the brand or the specific film, so you answered that it's rather the collections, right? And then I also had a question, at what stage do you take the films on board? I mean, because they usually have probably some careers in each territory, so is this a block for your strategies maybe, or how do you create the films and at which point of their life do you take them on board?
Actually, the films come from the partner sales agents of the project. So through Europa International, we get lots of lineups that we can choose from, and that we can select films that have had a certain awareness and a certain success in some European territories, but that have some other European territories that are left and that are available for exploitation on VOD. So it's basically films that have had like a year or a year and a half of career, I would say, and that have been already exposed theatrically mainly on some European territories. Yeah? Okay. So let's move on to 2016. So as I was explaining all those challenges, we like sort of came with new ideas on how to optimize the tools, and we also introduced some others. First of all, there was change regarding the tension between transversal and local. We have dedicated more budget in 2016 to local media partnerships. So instead of only going for social media or big outlets like Google, YouTube, etc., we're partnering on a territory by territory basis with key media, like for example in Spain, Playground or Cinemania, which are opinion leaders that can help us drive traffic and awareness about VOD on this specific country. We did actually one collection through them, and through these first experiences we have realized that it is really effective. First of all, because we have negotiations with each of them that allow us to place some advertisement, but like on top of that, get also contests, coverage on social media, and we can actually drive their audiences to our social media and blogs. So this has been so far something that we're testing very positively, and that we are estimating it's going to be a very good change for the rest of the year campaign. Some other change, as I was explaining before, since we realized that the video seeding was too expensive for us, we decided to allocate much more budget to YouTube TrueView, which appears to be much more cost effective, but also a very useful tool to have segments and niches activated. YouTube TrueView gives an amazing amount of information about the consumer, and we can really go very specifically to our audience. So this is something that we have privileged in the 2016 budget, and that we're working with. Besides the normal advertising of YouTube TrueView, we also have like the banners as added values, as you can see in the screen. And we also actually raised the budget for Google AdWords. As I was explaining before, this was very cost-effective tool, very good to manage, and giving us a lot of information about our consumer. So far, for example, we have raised from 2,000 clicks to the landing page. In only this year, we are already in almost 6,000 clicks to the landing page through this Google AdWords strategy. So also we are capitalizing also on the experience of the first year, and on the ratings that Google AdWords is giving to our project. The PR online has had also a lot of changes. We besides delivering press releases and normal follow-up, we're working with media partners on each territory, and we're offering them the possibility to do contests. On the first year, we actually did that with auto promo codes, like people could earn free films, for example, for iTunes or for Filmy. But this year, we're changing that, and many of the contests, people can also get an Apple TV or a Google Chromecast. So actually, this like sort of dresses up the contest and has much more visibility and participation. And what these kind of contests are bringing us is people that are keen to see films, and they are at the film platforms, are coming to us, and we are actually generating for the first time a very good database of VOD film consumers. So this is some of the challenges and changes of the PR campaign. In terms of social media, we have now achieved 7,500 page likes, so we are actually almost at the double of the numbers that we were in 2015 with these first 3 months of operation. And the changes have been, first of all, to generate more like diversified contents. So we are doing GIFs, we are doing 30 seconds promotions, which are working very well. So the promotion videos last year were longer, and we're promoting more the collection as an entire product. And this time we're working much more into individual promos of 30 seconds that are more adapted to Facebook. And we're also, we've raised the frequency actually of the posting. And thanks to the media partnerships, as I was explaining, we're getting a better involvement between social media and media. For the blog, we changed completely the usability. We created a very specific way to make people earn promo codes. So if they give us their email address, they will get a free promo code. We have created a B2C newsletter that is grouping all of our database and is sent out monthly so that people can participate from the contests, know what are the next releases, etc. So we have created a much more direct communication pattern with our consumers through this database. Sorry? Yeah. And the last tool actually is the remarketing. As you can see in these slides, these are examples of remarketing campaigns. And for those of you who are not familiar with this tool, it's actually, for example, many of you have probably experienced whenever you go and buy a flight, that all of a sudden you go to another and another and another website, and this banner sort of follows you to offer you the same type of flight again and again, or if you have looked for something in Amazon, etc. So we're using this as part of our Google AdWords strategy. This is something that you actually buy at Google AdWords as well, and the interface is very similar, so it's relatively simple to put in place and allows you to follow the consumer that has already visited your blog or your website. We are at the very beginning, so we don't have results yet because we have applied it on the last collection only. So Alexia will tell you more about this conclusion, but as you can see, it is everything in an ongoing process. We are sharing with you here a little bit like real-time results as we're learning from our analysis from 2015. We're making changes for the new collections. So this is like all work in progress.
You said it all. So we will now invite Salma on stage for the second part. Or maybe we can do just a few minutes of Q&A if you have any specific question. Just go.
Hi, thanks for the explanation. I would like to know if you're intending or if you're already distributing VR content or if you're interested in that or not at all.
Not for the moment because it's only online VOD distribution. So I don't think we think about that for the moment.
Because there are some VOD platforms of VR that are creating now the VOD platforms, so that's why I was wondering.
You know some VOD platforms that are creating content for VR?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We can speak. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there is a few. They're only starting now because it's a very huge market. So it's something I think you should think about, maybe.
We will. Thank you.
You said that you are putting your content in platforms like Amazon. How are you placing them there? I mean, how they become visible and how people realize that they are in fact part of this project? Because, you know, like, although you didn't want to specifically say that it's part of the brand, I mean, wouldn't it help a little bit for people to differentiate from other films?
Yeah, we actually have at Under the Milky Way a team of business agents that are all in touch with the editorial programmer for each global platforms. So they send out newsletter and they explain the project of this way. The platforms are actually eager to have the same content delivered in all of the languages at the same time. So they display the special room with all the Walt Disney movies, and they also make them visible on their homepage every time a new collection is out.
Actually, today Actually, today we have focused a lot on B2C marketing to explain you how we reach the audience, but of course what you have mentioned is very important because it's all the trade commerce or the B2B part, which is done by Under the Milky Way for all their films, not only for Walk This Way, but that allows the content to be visible in the store at least for the first weeks of the launch. And without that, the other part wouldn't make sense because once the consumer gets to the platform, it would be lost. So it's like a complementary job that we do between the two companies.
So let's move on with Tide. So Tide, it's a Tide experiment. It's a day and date initiative, also supported by the European Commission. It's the 4th edition now, so we have enough distance to start analysis the different type of release and movies that work the most on day and date. And it appears that, oops, there was a sorry. Yeah. Is it back on the screen yet? No. Alright, so Tide is an experiment on day-and-date distribution models on multi-territory and VOD platform releases. We're partnering with local distributors, and we're doing a transversal marketing strategy and using mutualized resources to promote our movies. Just to show you in a nutshell, it's already the 4th edition, so we've been releasing 11 movies from the past 4 years, involving 8 sales agents, 25 local distributors, in more than 20 territories. Just a few words about the marketing strategy that we've been using for our documentaries.
Okay, yeah, just to give you some examples. These were some of the materials that we developed for Master of the Universe, where we discussed first with all the distributors involved and realized what they needed what was the important message to put in place. And we worked a lot with the reviews that the film had, because it is a film having a very strong word of mouth. That we placed in different graphic pieces to be spread on social media, YouTube, or any type of digital marketing tools that we were using. So this was the main, the approach here for the distributors was to do more like an asset locker with different graphic tools that they could use across the different channels. Well, as for Dior and I, we did very different approaches. The asset locker was already created and validated by the Dior brand, so we were not able to create much more additional material. So what we did actually was to create events. In this particular event, we tried to link together 2 countries. So actually we had a parallel screening in Paris and in Brussels at the same time, and it was linked through an online Q&A where people at Brussels, or through Skype actually, because they would have seen the film on VOD on day and date, they were able to ask questions to the talents which were sitting in Paris. So this is a way to do like an event on the offline world, but that has a direct impact on the online world as well, and to take advantage of the day and date release promotion-wise. And for example, for the visit, we had the chance to follow this documentary already from the start as the film agency, because we were involved in the marketing strategy at the beginning and also in social media during Sundance. So we knew we were connecting with Salma at Outlook, but also with the producers directly, and we shipped this orange blob to several territories where the film was launched and created images, videos, and photos with this type of yes, of dressing of an astronaut, or which generated a lot of content, and that was engaging for that type of community. We worked a lot on grassroots as well for this film. There was an involvement of the scientific Science Film Week, which were very involved. There was an event where the film was launched on Vimeo in like 20 countries at the same time, just before Tide came in. So we had lots of work to do towards scientific communities across the different territories. So this one was more like a grassroots driven campaign.
This line explains the part of the VOD revenues and the box office of the movies. I have chosen to compare the two fiction movies that we released in 2014 and 15 and the last three movies that we released to show you how the VOD part is important in the global box office reports. Actually for documentaries, so Joanna, The Visit and Master of the Universe, it's 2 or 3 times more important than for fiction.
So we have had, we are analyzing in Tide a sort of hypothesis that we're coming in with, and it's that given these box office numbers, we think that Day and Date is particularly adapted for documentaries. And there are 3 different reasons why we think maybe the results are pointing in that way. And I say maybe because, of course, we cannot pull definitive conclusions out of releasing 3 documentaries. There's of course much more experimentation to be done and much more comparisons and benchmarks regarding figures to understand this phenomenon better. But what we think is that on one hand, the documentary communities have different niches that we can approach easily. For example, in the case of our documentaries, it was finance, fashion, or science. So we were able to tackle particular communities through social media, through TrueView and all the different digital marketing tools that we had. So we were doing something really concrete in terms of looking for the audiences. And this is something very common in documentary marketing in general. So we think that overall, a documentary is more adapted to tackle specific communities online than fiction is. A second reason why we think this actually these results for documentaries are better is that the theatrical exhibitors are less reluctant to Day and Date when it comes to documentary. Basically, documentary has not been by tradition a theatrical product or exclusively a theatrical product. It has been also these type of films are distributed very often only in TV. So somehow there's more flexibility coming from the exhibitors regarding Day and Date. If we come back to the figures for a second, you will see that Dior and I has very good results in theatrical box office, and once we publish the entire results, you will see that Italy, for example, has excellent results, and the film was released with 70 screens because we did more like an event-driven release. So the documentary was supposed to stay for a week or so on cinemas, and then the theaters were not so concerned about the fact that the film was going to be so quickly available on VOD. So this is very important because it is totally different when it comes to fiction. And the third reason that we think actually contributes to the good results of docs is that the marketing strategy is less paid driven. It is much more PR or social media driven. So we can ultimately spend less money in communicating and less money in the P&A. There's much more work because we have to tackle the grassroots and the outreach campaigns, but it's not necessarily invest driven. So this makes more awareness with less investment, so to say. So we actually wanted to know more about Salma's opinion, since she's completely specialized on selling documentaries. Why, like, how do you feel about these ideas?
Thanks for sharing this insight. So can we get back to the numbers, because I guess you are shocked about the small numbers, but I have to explain them a little bit and try to give you some reference. The TIDE project basically doesn't allow a distributor to give MG. So that means we already sold the films to the territories with the biggest potential for around 200,000 euros. And TIDE only covered the territories where I would say the film had hardly any chance to get released. So in terms of a Master of the Universe, it was Poland, Romania, and France after the TV broadcast, and the Netherlands after the TV broadcast. So just that you know why the numbers are that small. I think that explains it a little bit more, because it performed on a different level in other countries. But there, of course, we had to ask for a bigger MG. And the same happens with The Visit. So that's why we're super happy that TIDE still took the project. And the work they did on The Visit was amazing, because we started already before Sundance, so we start to trigger our audience there. And we, from the beginning, we thought this can become a sort of a cult film, so we organized a date. From the beginning, we said, okay, after 1 year after the theatrical release, the festival release at Sundance, we would like to have like worldwide event. And it was a little bit difficult because of the time lapse. We thought scientists are crazy enough to come to the cinemas at 4 o'clock in Japan, but that really didn't work out. But they did it in Korea, so we had one date where we had, and that was beginning of October, where we had like 40 cities screening the film simultaneously and twittering and sending text messages to the Q&A, the director, in a bunker in Copenhagen. So that was like our event that we created. This is not a classic theatrical, so from that moment on, some territories released it theatrically, but it was from the beginning, it was too limited for the classic theatrical, because it was a very academic, a very philosophical film, and so we were more than happy to have the film based, embedded in this kind of event, and then go online right after. And in my opinion, that was just a perfect setup, and I have to say that for documentaries in UK and US, day and date is standard. It's out of question. It's only in Europe where we have to discuss it again and again.
Maybe you can, did you expect movies like Master of the Universe or The Visit to have such results on VOD? And maybe you can explain more the case of Master of the Universe?
Yeah, so yeah, Master of the Universe was like, so this, the bigger results came from US, and we used the material, the marketing material created by TIDE that helped already for the US release. And in US, I mean, you have the current numbers. I think it crossed, it's a just to explain a little bit, Master of the Universe is the inside of a German banker. So it's 90 minutes, he's only speaking German, and giving his insight how the banking system changed. It was one of the first documentaries from Europe on this subject, and we got great reviews in New York Times and so on from the festival release in US, but there was no distributor who wanted to do some theatrical. So we used the TIDE marketing strategy to release the film in North America, and crossed 60,000 euros there only on VOD. So I think this is quite a good number.
Maybe we can open the Q&A to the audience about the date and documentary.
I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the main advantage of the simultaneous international releases? Is it the experience of the live stream, let's say, or what is the point? I don't mean it critically, I'm just interested. And do you think that day-and-date releases are a new business model? I mean, does it work? Is this a business model that we should all just step into?
I have to say it's depending. I mean, as much as a film is individually to be discussed and released, at the same, you have to take a film and then just see the potential in different territories, and then you do release strategy. They can be super helpful in some cases, sometimes it's not. I mean, if you're counting on a big box office, but then I'm talking about big box office, so because usually it's a classic theatrical release in Germany or in France, it costs you P&A between 50 and 100,000 euros. So you need to have real box office numbers and tickets sold to recoup these costs. If you go day and date, it can be a much smaller P&A, you can be more guerrilla-like, and it's much more intense, and you do one marketing strategy for different channels, and you give availability. So you do the marketing for the events, for the special screenings, for the small theatrical, for VOD, and usually if you have a media chronology, you go out with a marketing strategy for the theatrical, and then you restart for DVD and restart for VOD again. So it's. I mean, we had films that cost 1 million euros in German-speaking territories like Young Obscure. Of course, we were more than happy that that was a proper release and in the cinemas for 4 months. On the other hand, we had films or like Cure and I, which I do think in terms of numbers, it's not our film, but worked out really well on VOD. Day and date. So I think it's extremely individual, and but what I would like to have, I would love to be an advocate for opening the European market, to have this as an option at least for all our films, so we can decide film by film if we would like to go out day and date or not.
Yes, and just wanted to add to what Salma is saying, is that from the audience point of view, it's a much more coherent model today, because actually from the film industry, we still have challenges to convey with the needs of the audiences, but they really want to see films whenever they can, wherever they can. And having windows is not really adapted to what see cuts, where we can actually, through availability of a legal offer, also cut that challenge. I think we have to finish by now, so I don't know if there's one last question or if we are finished. Okay, finished. Thank you.